being attacked by a tire. Welcome to the 38th episode of the Chambler Build series. In this episode, I build a whole new frame for the rear, cut out the bad trunk material, build boxes to support the lower front of the rear shackle mounts. A hell of an action-packed episode. Let's get to it. My plan so far is to pull the jacks that are supporting the body, so I'm going to need them to support the rear of the car so I can take the axle out and start cleaning everything up, because I've got to get that done as quick as I possibly can. I've got to find a way to support the back of the vehicle. That scissor transmission jack is working just fine, but it's only going to do so much. So I might put at least a couple braces inside after I take the wheels off and just see where everything's at, see how it hangs, and double check that everything isn't going to crush me. I'm on borrowed time and I want to enjoy as much of it as I can. Talked over with my buddy Derek, and I think the first thing I'm going to do is put the tube in back here that I have to strengthen up, because everything back here is just flimsy. So I'm going to get this area all cleaned up and prepped for the tube. Get the tube in there and try to get some support back here. I might even put the bumper back on it, just simply to have more bracing, and then I'll figure out what I'm doing forward, because in all likelihood, well, the big thing that's going to have to happen is that rear axle and suspension is going to have to come completely out from under the car. So I clean everything up and get it ready. As this going, I'll bring in, show you stuff as things happen. I've got everything as cleaned up as I can until I drop this. So I'm going to go ahead and lower this down, push it in, and reposition it. I checked the squareness. I'll check it again once it's down and see if anything moves. I moved about 0.1 degree from where it was. Ooh, that almost hurt. Well, start doing some measurements. I'm not sure if I'm going to put it in or pull it all the way out yet. My friend Keith Silver, he helped clean up the tube for me, got it in place. It's mocked up where it needs to be. The rear trunk pan is as level as it's going to get until I start bracing it more. I'm in the shadows. So I'm going to start welding in. He's going to help me level it in the bottom because it's peaking up way high in the center. Hi, Keith.
What was that?
I said hello, Keith.
Hello. I gotta cut it all, otherwise we'll just rip the sheet metal.
Yay!
Thank goodness for metal fatigue.
Hi, Keith.
Hello. BFH, please.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go. It's actually pretty clean. This is all the decklet sheet metal. And then right here's the thick stuff. Or thicker.
You ready to see if this thing closes?
Yep.
Oh, it'll close, but is it going to close well?
That'll be mint.
We're back to how it was before I fixed it.
Too low?
That side sunk again. That's what it did. That's how it was when I got it. The gap is fairly consistent at the bottom. It's consistently crappy, but it's consistent.
Panel gaps on these things were a mile off when they're new.
Well, it's probably a 1/4 inch off side to side.
It's about what you're off right here.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the passenger side rear shackle bracket was so bad it was pulling away from the body and shoving itself into the rear, so we couldn't get the rear material for the flooring to set. We had to end up pulling the rear suspension apart, so we pulled it apart at the front and the rear. With that rain, I wasn't able to get this out, but I've got these cross braces in. So there's a brace from here to this new piece of material I put in, and I put these stringers on it just to give me some force and some flex prevention, because this area is going to want to go down. Tomorrow morning, what I'll do is I'll drop the rear support, pull the axle out, and then I can start cleaning up and reinforcing and evaluating all this junk back here, because it's likely going to be a lot of extra work. And I need to figure out what I'm going to do to connect the Bluetooth section of the frame here to the Cherokee body, or Cherokee chassis. What I have to do now is figure out how I'm going to get the rear axle out from underneath the car. I'm likely going to put a cart underneath the pinion, drop the tire pressure, pull the tires, and it should come out. Everything should be braced enough that nothing should move, but I need it out to start really cleaning everything up and getting everything prepped, because I gotta go, which I probably said 4 or 5 times now. That's a thumbs up, not a thumbs down, but I'm laying on the ground, so. I'm gonna end up having to use my door cart that I built for my TJ. I have a much stronger cart that I wanted to use, but it's too tall. This should work fine. It should be strong enough. Don't know about the casters, but we're not moving it a great deal, so I'm gonna take this bar off, which is actually the upper bar that's flipped over, and get it in there and see what I need to do to make it work. So this cart should work out fine. I'm gonna grab 2 of my 4x4s and put them in here as support. And also should help me to kind of level out the axle, and I can take them down, put 2x4s or whatever else I need to in as I try to roll this out. I'm gonna pull these supporting jacks because at this point they're not doing much anything. Yep. Shackle, bumper bracket, flap disc. Not gonna be able to do that too much longer. Certainly can't do it in the front anymore. Oh well. Hopefully this little cart doesn't collapse. It theoretically should be strong enough. Like I said, I think the wheels might be the weak link, but we'll find out together. Well, I'll find out, and then probably a week later you'll find out, but you know, you'll see mostly the same thing I see. Other than some of the crap I edited out because I said something stupid or fumbled with my words or found more metal. Spent a lot of time underneath this car. I'm looking forward to not doing that at some time in the near future. Let's see how it does. Just need the tire off the ground. Anything crazy. You're gonna kill it. Always overkill it. Actually, comes right off. That's great. Being attacked by a tire. Let down slow. We'll see what happens after I put something in to keep the pinion up. And it's kind of important, otherwise I'm going to roll and smack and not want to come out and make a complete tool out of myself on a TV. I don't really want to do it for that reason. I do it enough for other regular reasons. I should do just fine. Now we'll let this down slowly and see what happens. So far it's all right. Oh, good, 2 in a row. Everybody cross all your fingers for me. This could get interesting. Get out of there. The next step is pull the axle back. The one thing I kind of forgot about is partly why I didn't want to use that tiny cart is because those tiny wheels aren't going to roll on gravel. So I might have to just simply move it back and move it back in when I'm done. Of course, it keeps raining, so it's making my life a little complicated. Oh, don't start turning sideways, you pain in my butt. We gotta go do something with the parking brake cables. I'll be back. So far the wheels are holding up. They're not bent over and crumpled yet. Wait for the Air Force. A little sonic boom for you. Now the fun part is I get to take that one shim out if I can and drop the pinion down. This should be entertaining. There we go. That wasn't too bad. Hey! First thing I need to do to get the rear suspension in here correctly is get these garbage hangers out of here in the front. So I'm going to slice it off with a Sawzall because there's some weld back here, and then grind up what I can and hopefully break it off. Do the same for the passenger side and figure out where I'm at. I had to cut the mount in half. It was welded on enough, and there was enough boogers that it was the only way I was going to get it off with everything that's around here. I'm going to need some new saw blades and some new grinding wheels, so what I'm going to do is clean up this side of the frame to the best of my ability, and tomorrow morning I'll get more equipment and start chopping up the passenger side. So I'm going to go through and clean all the junk and crap up and go as far over as humanly possible, get all the loose rust and crap off. Sometimes I can say crap. And then treat the rusty areas. If I'm lucky, I'll start cutting some of this out as well. I should be able to do that with my air saw. Cut the pocket and some of the stuff that I know I have to remove. No matter what I end up doing with the vehicle, that rear spring shackle mount has got to go. I also have to get the factory replacement front leaf spring mounts out and start figuring out where they're going to go. Because I'll have to also go to Alro and get some more material. And because I'm thinking I'm going to have to lower them, because where he had them, it won't work right. Like everything else on the car, actually. I needle scaled everything, knocked all that loose crap off, and I've only got one spot that I'm going to have to address. You can see by all the carnage on the floor that, yeah, fun times. But at least there's only one. I can't English anymore. One bad spot. That's cute. Doesn't surprise me, but it's cute. More shit to repair on this side of the car. Make more frame panel patches. I gotta turn off the camera so I can cuss and throw things now. I think I got most of the measurements plotted out for where I'm gonna put the front brackets for the rear springs, but I need to get a couple more things cut out. Give myself a better way to double check everything. I've got to make a back brace and some stuff that's likely going to have to happen first, but I do need to get that into position so I can get a drive shaft ordered. I do need to cut this pocket out, which was the old shackle bracket for the rear leaf springs. It's kind of step one, and I'll start grinding stuff up, moving stuff, measuring stuff. Fix the newel post. Get all the junk out of that area, the final trimming, and anything else I have to do, I'm going to wait until I know what size of tubing I'm going to have to fit or what I'm going to have to use for the bracket to mount the rear shackles. It's a good start. Now on the passenger side. Well, that took about forever. I cleaned all this crap off of them, all the junk and bad weld, and they're all cleaned up and ready to get welded in. Now I just have to do everything else. But I needed these so I could actually fit them and figure out how I'm going to make the frame and etc., yada yada. These are actually pretty nice pieces. Maybe I rust these off-road. Make some pretty good stuff. I believe this is, it's either 3/16 or 1/4 inch thick. So they'll be nice. I just have to make sure how I'm going to mount them. Stopped by Alro this morning, got some more tubing. This is more of that 3" by 1" by 14 gauge wall tubing. I wanted to get 4" by 1", but they didn't have anything, so I ended up having to go 2 by 1, 14 gauge as well. I might have to just double up. I think I'm going to use this material to make the standoff for the rear shackle mounts, but we'll see. Get this in the garage and get to figuring out what I'm doing with it. I have the replacement frame rails made that are going to go from the Cherokee butt end to the Rambler back where the bumper would be and the frame brackets. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut the center of this old crappy sheet metal out. I have a Cherokee replacement factory floor pan that I got from C2C Customs. I'm going to go ahead and put that in here in the back. Might as well get as much of this crap out of my way as I can. So I believe I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, grind up all the stuff I need to get it ready, paint it, and stick the frame rails in. Then I can finally get back to the suspension brackets, which is why I'm doing all this in the first place. A little less floor, more scrap for the pile. Everything is cleaned up and hit with weld-through primer. I ended up cutting the tube at that line, 6.5 inches from the back tube on both sides. So I'm going to at least have one thing. This is the same side to side. Give me a chance to get rid of some of the junk and some of the really bad quality stuff on both sides. I'm going to let the zinc primer dry, and then I'm going to throw the frame rails in. Progress, progress, progress. My new rear frame rails are all tacked in place. I'm going to end up removing this stuff, but I'm going to wait a bit. I think I'm going to be able to use these as a mount for my gas tanks. I'm happy this is in and solid enough for me to keep working, and hopefully my friend can buzz them in a little bit better because I'm still not 100% confident in my welding. I'm going to try here and there, see what I can do, but this is too important to just helicopter. A really close helicopter. It's too important to just kind of wing it, so we'll see what he thinks, and just going to keep moving forward. This is very good. This is nice and still flexy, but it's strong. And realistically, the most important part, the trunk still closes nicely. Ta-da! Look at that trunk action. I'm under the car, looking at the driver's side, trying to figure out the right placement for the rear suspension to get the tire as centered as humanly possible, even though with the leaf springs it is going to move rearward when it compresses. That is a 31-inch tire, so I'm trying to figure out exactly how it's going to sit, and that is probably about where everything's going to be. I'm going to have to make one hell of a big step-down bracket to properly mount the suspension. That's approximately where I had the rear shackle brackets, and I'm going to have to move them back probably a good 2 inches because there's no way that's going to line up right even with the longer removable shackles. To leave some adjustability in there. I have to drop the axles out on the 4x4s to make sure everything works right and I can fit and check everything before I start cutting and making brackets and buying more steel. So I'll do that now. I'll end up having to put the pinion in at the right angle. It's 5.8 degrees or so is what I need to be at, 5.8 to 6. Compared to my other Cherokee. The webbing on the differential, like I mentioned in the earlier part of the video, is going to hit, so I got to see if it'll work with just a 2x. And this thing's coming down to just simply a matter of timing. I don't have a lot of time left. I'm trying to get coordinated with my friends to help me. It's proving somewhat difficult because they have lives and things to do that do not involve my silly ass and my YouTube projects. Okay. Well, I've got the axle positioned where I believe it's going to need to be, so I'm going to throw this empty wheel on it and see if everything lines up like I think it is. Oh, steel wheels are so much fun. I gotta double check that these aren't binding on anything, but these are stock wheels. They should work just fine. Right as this sits, it is dead in the middle of the wheel opening, so it might have to go a little farther forward, actually. Like I probably said before in this video, leaf springs go backwards in a normal arc when you're not doing off-roading fun stuff. They go backwards, so you want to have just a little less here and a little more there. Of course, I'm going to cut the whole freaking wheel well open, so I'm probably better off having more clearance, because this is immovable. This is technically open to whatever I decide. This has limits because it's, you know, the door's right there. I don't know how much of this you're going to be able to see. And I'm under here measuring for the drive shaft, or attempting to do so. Bad gas. That's what that smells like. Even as skinny as I am, I can't exactly... I'm going to have to get on a piece of cardboard. I'll be back. It's really not enough extra space, but I have to just be able to do it here. Couldn't really get this any higher with the jacks when I position everything. Now there's not enough space. Okay. Let's compress all the way. 6 1/4 to the center of the circlip. 7 1/4 to the center of the circlip. Okay. I just need to figure out how I'm getting back there. I'll be back in a minute. Don't go anywhere. I haven't measured for a drive shaft in a very, 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 very long time. 12 3/4. I'm not changing the pinion angle or anything else. It's basically going to be stock. They're going to be, well, let's drive from being upside down. This is going to be 3/8 of an inch lower, but that's not really going to alter much of anything. Maybe a ½ inch with the new springs. Oh, I'm covered in stabby things. Tiny stabby things. Got everything cleaned up, got those mounts ground down and off, and I'll have a couple little things I have to repair from the stuff he'd done before, but that I can do as we're going, as I'm going. Got the first of the panels made up. It's basically going to go right there. Verify the size and height and everything else, and I can start building the bottom piece and the inner piece. I'm in the middle of the car looking at the driver's side. I'm going to have to remove that brake line bracket. The inner part of the frame is straight. The outer part starts to tip in and move towards the center. and thins out by about a ½ inch, so I'm going to have to accommodate that because I need to keep the spring mount in the same width, so that might be a little interesting. My friends Derek and Schultz were over this weekend, and I got the braces in for the rear suspension. They're located. My friend Ryan's going to be over in a little bit to weld over some of the stuff I don't feel confident doing. I'm very glad he's doing that. Getting everything cut off and these brackets located in has been a hell of a task. I'm going to end up putting a plate here. I'm going to do that once I get these in. It's just going to be a cover plate that'll allow me to pinch and line off these. The shackle brackets are going to mount right to here. The main shackle bracket mount is going to be those two tubes. Like I said, I'm going to put a plate down through here, and then I'm going to connect everything over and build a bridge over here, make this tube connect to the frame. But that's all stuff I can do once these are in and tight, then I know I have a permanent location. I know what I have to work around. The rear drums are in just fine shape. I'm going to hit them with the rebuild spray, aka brake clean and a little bit of paint. And these are in good enough shape to run them, which is great. That means there's one less thing I have to buy. I laid out everything on the concrete, give me a measurement side to side and try to keep everything even. It's the easiest way for me to keep stuff written down, and it didn't go away, which is awesome. My buddy Ryan got all the cross braces welded in and the rear tubes for the frame system that I built. He's got that all set. First thing I'm going to do is weld these little caps in, trim them up and get them to fit, so that way it'll cap off the tube, give it a little more strength. I'm still going to build down braces and other stuff, and he'll be back to do all the heavy structural stuff. It's a complicated little frickin' thing. Many angles. The rear frame section is completely welded in. We threw some of these nice little gussets in that A&A supplied me, so I've got one in each corner, so that gives me a nice strong base and triangulates everything and locks it in. I've got the front leaf spring mounts roughly tacked in place. They should be all good to go in terms of location, and I want to double check everything with the axle. But to do that, I've got to finish cutting through this tube because I cannot position the axle correctly in the leaf springs because everything hits. Now, piece one coming out on the passenger side. Well, here's hoping everything works out right. Oh, holy free holies. My God, that actually is working so far. I slammed some bolts in it. The bolts I'm putting in here right now are strictly to make sure my alignment's okay. They are not the correct bolts. I'm gonna have to shove it forward a little bit more. It's probably gonna be too much, but nope. Oh man, that makes me feel a million times better. And it actually looks like so far we're pretty much in line where we need to be. Damn, we're close. Very close. Well, that makes me feel a ton better because there is so much that could go wrong with this. There's still a lot of up in the airs, but that's great progress. I'm extremely happy. The measurements look like they're pretty close. I will double check everything once I get everything a little bit more finite. This is on the passenger side. This is the only bad spot in the frame I've noticed. So I've made a cap for it. I'm going to go ahead and grind these out, get them smooth, hit them with some rust-through paint or rust-preventing paint. Like a glove. I'm going to take the jack that you can't see that's just out of frame and push it up in the middle, clamp it all down nice and tight, and then start welding. The outside of the passenger frame patch is all set. I'm going to go up underneath and start welding in the other support pieces and finish off that patch. I took my original plate design and modified it heavily to fit around the tubing, and then I also formed it like this, and this one was too short, so I ended up making another one, and it is in here now. I'm going to start measuring out where I need to cut and form to make a back piece. It's probably going to be 3 pieces, one that goes up and around, one that goes back to the middle, and then one on the side, and there'll also be a cap. Do that for both sides, and I'll bring it back in when I have stuff sort of formed. Assume the frame is right here. The front leaf string mount is going to mount to the outside here and on those tubes. This is going to go around, sandwich into the frame. This piece lays inside like this, catches the frame, catches the pocket. It'll also allow me to mount the lower brace for the spring bucket. And this little guy comes in here, and caps off the inside. Stuff in place. Now let's put the bottom cap on. I'm gonna pull the bolts and hopefully slide the axle back for the last time before everything gets welded into place. I'm cutting a strip out on both sides to try and even out this line on the chassis so I can make the inner fender wells for the rear area. I'm also going to cut these free. Kind of convenient being able to stand inside the trunk. There we go. 1 tube out. I'm going to go ahead and put a center panel in the inner wheel tubs on both sides to give me some structure, because I am going to have to cut some of this out. And I need all the trunk pieces and all this to stay. I'm likely going to cut it here, and some of this just completely destroyed stuff, but we'll see how it goes. The forward leaf spring mounts are all boxed in and looking awesome. I've got to do what I can to straighten this and flatten it out, because I need to start building the mounts back here for the shackles and actually support this frame, because this isn't bad, but it's not going to be strong enough to support the whole car with the gas tank and the leaf springs, all the leverage right here. So I need to do what I can. As we're going, I'll show you what I'm doing, but I need to get this straight. Well, let's see what I can do. Well, that was a hell of a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. There are still some damaged parts in here. That's partly why I think I'm going to make a strap to carry it over, kind of get rid of some of this junked up stuff. I don't think it was an accident. I think it was just rust. And this really is a frame rail chunk that I put the patch on, so this is kind of the bad spot of the car. Really the only bad spot. Everything else is mild by Michigan standards, at least. I know probably some of you are looking at this stuff in horror, but this is mild for Michigan. Mild. Well, in order to get the rear axle in here correctly, I'm going to have to pull the cart. I'm going to use these jacks on both sides to lift it up, and hopefully, as long as it doesn't start slipping, I'll be able to lower it down and get the rear spring eyes in the right position. I'm going to work it off assuming that I know what the correct angle for the pinion is, which I do, and kind of go from there and try to get everything the way I need it. The floor, which you hopefully have seen in some of the earlier episodes, slopes towards the passenger side, so I'm going to have to level it out probably to the chassis, because the chassis is level. We'll cover that as I get there. If you ever have one of these jacks and you're stuck somewhere and you don't know how to use it, just get a chisel. Fits right in there. Tech tip of the day. Tech tip of the year. Tech tip, I'm just tired of looking at this car. Yay! In case you're new, or I haven't said it 45 times before, the rear is going to set the right height for the front. I have a couple different options for lifting the front, because I know this is going to be taller. I needed it for clearance and everything else. Even if I wasn't going to run the bigger tires, it still needed for clearance. Clarence. That's my dad's middle name, was Clarence. He never liked that, so I'd call him that when I was a kid, trying to get under his skin. Fun little pointless facts that matter to no one. Hi, or 6 on the dot. I've got everything laid out in the back here. Yes, there is a shackle, but I'm trying to get positioning without it, so this is something I can't account for at the moment. So if I put them here, giving me a little space backwards, little space forwards, I'm going to have to go ahead and put the axle on the ground, mock this up, get it in position, and then take the shackle on the leaf and start trying to make sure everything's correct. I don't know how else to do it, because I can't accommodate or compensate for the movements. So I have it pretty much where I think it needs to be. I need to load the suspension though to see if this is going to work height-wise and everything else. It should, and I might just have to go ahead and say send it. I'm going to have to cut this hunk of frame out on both sides so that it's even with this party line piece of frame. I'm going to have to put a piece of frame down here. Well, you'll find out what I do theoretically in a couple seconds. A huge thank you to my friend Ryan. He got all the major components welded in last night. going to go ahead and clean up a few things and finish them up that he didn't have time for and that I can do and I need to practice. And they're not going to kill me spots, so win. This is a passenger side frame at the rear. There was a small amount of rust and stuff, so I cleaned it all out, and I made this cap, and he welded this in for me as well. So nice bit of extra strength added in. Again, this is the only spot. This is where that patch is in the frame rail. It's the only real spot where there's any real damage, and it's all been taken care of. Another win. I'm going to go ahead and get the shackles into the hanger, and I think we'll call this episode to an end. Thank you all for watching the 38th episode of the Chambler build series. Next episode is going to be engine wiring and a bunch of the interior stuff. Moving forward, if I get this thing on the ground and rolling and get some more of the sheet metal done, I'll be able to push it outside. Definitely coming down to the wire, but I do thank everybody for watching. And all the new people will welcome in. There's a ton of content in this car. It's pretty interesting as far as I'm concerned, and I think so far everybody else as well. Let's go ahead and look back at the catalog. Like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys want to see. It's headed to no name. That is the goal. Let's make it happen. See you next time.